Hey guys, my name is Colin McConan. I'm a physical therapist with orthopedic clinical specialist. Today we're going to go over the gait sign. Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about is basics of normal gait. It's terminology. Today I'm using what's called a Ranchos Los Amigos terminology, which is initial contact, you have loading response, you have mid-stance portion, terminal stance, pre-swing, initial swing, mid-swing, and then lastly you have terminals. Okay, so gait is basically a sequence in which the reference leg goes through what's called a stance phase, where the foot's on the ground, and then you have the swing phase where the foot is falling off the ground. Okay, some basic terminology. Again, you have step length is a distance between one point of the heel strike and one extremity to the other. Okay, so basically one heel to the other heel. That's what's called step length. And stride length is basically the length of one leg, the reference leg, throughout its entire gait cycle. Okay, so let's begin with the initial contact. So in initial contact, basically you're looking at the tibialis anterior group. And the tibialis anterior group, what it does is it eccentrically slows down things, especially before loading response. It slows down the ankle foot group. It basically prevents what's called foot slap, foot drop. Okay. Now the quadriceps in this particular case, the quads, the hamstrings, and the glute max, they're going to co-contract to slow down that particular segment. Okay, so instead they're acting to gently cause the general transition heel strike to the loading response. So it's taking place slowly in a controlled manner. Now in the loading response, what's going on is really interesting. So what's going on is you have the quadriceps femoris. Now that's acting to eccentrically slow things down. Okay. However, in the posterior tibial group in this particular case, now it's beginning to go transition from a group that's eccentrically going to slow down that anterior tibial translation. Okay. Now you're looking at the mid stance. Things begin to quiet down the quadriceps, and however, a really interesting muscle called the popliteus externally rotates, and it acts to basically lock in. So it's called a lock-in mechanism. This externally rotates the tibia, and it acts to lock in the complex. And the femur in this particular case is internally rotating. So the internal rotation of the femur and external rotation of the tibia is what's called a lock-in mechanism. Okay. Now, what happens is that from the mid-stance to terminal stance, you still continue to have the eccentric activation where you basically now you have the external rotation of the femur and you have the internal rotation of the tibia. So the lock-in mechanism seizes and it unlocks. Okay, so you still have the eccentric activation of the posterior tibialis group, and now that posterior tibialis group is going to contract concentrically, meaning it's acting to push off. This is pretty key. Okay. Now that's in the ranges amigos terminology, that's called the pre-swing stage. Okay. Now what happens is you have the iliopsoas. It's basically it's a muscle spindle response. So when the glute max concentric activates to extend the hip, that activates the muscle spindle response, the golgi tendon response of the iliopsoas, which helps to activate the iliopsoas, which then results in a concentric flexion of the hip, okay, which results in the passive knee flexion in initial swing. And then in mid-swing, it's more active knee flexion is taking place here via the hamstrings. Now, the key part of the mid-swing and the ankle-foot region is the dorsiflexors that act concentrically in mid-swing to prevent any interaction with obstacles, and also prevents the patient or the individual from falling. Now, in terminal swing, you have the hamstrings eccentrically activated to control the lengthening, and the quadriceps is concentrically activated to lengthen that muscle. And in addition, the tibialis anterior is now beginning to act eccentrically to control that foot drop. So in essence, in the beginning, things start with the tibialis anterior. Tibialis anterior controls the ankle foot, and the muscles are co-contracted. Okay, and that co-contraction is causing them to help stabilize the lower extremity region as it changes from the initial contact to the lowering response stage. But in the lowering response stage, you start to have a lot of eccentric activity taking place amongst the posterior tibialis group to prevent the excessive anterior tibialis translation. And also you have the quadriceps, which is acting eccentrically to control that excessive knee flexion. Okay? And then you have that transition where it acts, now the quadricep is acting concentrically alongside the glutes in order to extend the knee and extend the hip. Posterior tibialis group is controlling that dorsiflexion component and helping to control the anterior tibial progression. And then in the terminal stance, really it becomes a hip effort, okay, where the iliopsoas, muscle spindles of the iliopsoas are activated, thus resulting due to the stress response caused by the effort of the glute max. And then that swiftly results in the swing stage, which acts as a pendulum effect to propel the hip forward. However, in the gastroc, the posterior tibialis group, it's now acting concentrically. It transitioned from the eccentric activation to concentric activation. And then in the swing phase, what's happening is you have flexion of the hip, and then you also have that knee flexion via the hamstring, and that dorsiflexion via the anterior tibial group concentrically in order to overcome obstacles. Okay? And then, lastly, you start to have the eccentric activation of the hamstring and the concentric activation of the quads to extend the knee in a controlled manner. The tibialis anterior group starts to act eccentrically again. So it's really an incredible sequence of hip musculature, in addition to ankle foot musculature. So the ankle foot musculature changes from eccentric control to concentric control throughout the gait cycle. However, the hip musculature has changes from concentric control and eccentric control via co-contraction activity into yet again more concentric control and more co-contractile activity. So in a nutshell, you have an incredible array of musculature taking place, moving the limbs, not only in a control manner, but in a propulsive manner to get one limb to the next. So again, you have the heel strike, loading response, mid stance, terminal stance, and pre-swing. And then transitioning to where the foot is off the ground, initial swing, mid swing, and then lastly, terminal swing.